Okay, we're live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee of Portsmouth City Council. Thanks very much indeed, everybody, for coming. I don't think, well, George, welcome. Are you here as a member of the committee? Okay, can we move you off the back row so that we're committee are together, so that no, at least one more forward. Don't be a shy retiring flower. Yeah. I need something to wake me up in the morning. So welcome. So let's just quickly run through who everybody is and then what we're doing. So I'm Gerald Vernon-Jackson. I'm chair of this committee, and let's go through from the front. Councillor Shah.
Good morning. Asghar Shah is my name, Councillor for Cowsham and Wimmering.
Thank you very much indeed. No, you're not recorded, Chris. You'll have to. No, just wobble it round. There we are.
Oh, there we are. Thank you very much. Good morning. Chris Atwell, St Thomas Ward.
Thank you. And our technical expert. Mary?
Mary Vallely, Cowsham and Wimmering Ward.
Judith?
Judith Smythe, Councillor for St Jude Ward and Vice Chair of this committee.
Matthew?
Good morning, Chair. Matthew Cordy, Member for Hilsey.
Thank you.
Richard Adair, Member for Nelson Ward.
Peter Candlish, Eastern Cranes Water.
Hugh Mason, St Jude Ward.
Councillor George Mantrick, the Paulsgrove Ward.
Thank you. So that makes up the membership of the committee. We're 10 of us on a cross-party basis. So we're now joined by officers who are helping us. Simon?
Morning, Simon Turner. I'm a team leader in the planning department.
I'm Lorna Juarez, Principal Planning Officer.
Morning, Chair. David Hodges, Head of Development Management.
And from Democratic, sir?
Alison Harper, Local Democracy Officer.
Thank you.
Good morning all. Juliette Gill, Principal Planning Solicitor.
Thank you. And then we're joined by various people who've come to talk to us. Mr. Farr.
Oliver Farr from Applecore, and I'm representing the applicant for 35 Sandringham Road today.
Lovely. Mr. Vertudes.
Good morning, everyone. Joao Vertudes from AEG Design, acting as an agent to 95 Queen's Road.
Lovely. Mr. Inman. Can you, if you can push your button, then your words are recorded for posterity, Mr. Inman.
Okay, Carl Inman, resident in Fratton, opposing Venture Tower.
Thank you very much indeed. And
sorry, I'm Sahil Jamnadas. I'm just here to observe.
You're more than welcome. And hello and welcome to Up in the Gods. Okay, I think that's it for everybody. Thank you very much indeed for coming. The way in which we operate is for each application that comes forward, the officers do the presentation of what they about each of these applications. Then councillors or members of the public who want to come and speak to us do so, and there is 6 minutes in favour and 6 minutes against. But actually, you can have two people objecting, so they're 6 minutes each. Then we then go into a bit of the. Then it is just for members of the committee, and we start by having a period for questions, and then we then come to a period of comments when we come to a conclusion about where we are, about what we're going to do. Jacob, welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself for the record?
It feels weird pressing these buttons. I'm Jacob. I'm a local community campaigner.
Thank you. And for the record, Jacob Short.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Jacob. Okay. So, colleagues, let's run through. George, you're subbing for Derek today. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Derek North is unwell and sends his apologies, so I'm standing in for him as standing deputy.
You were in on the list here coming to a deputation for Venture Tower. do you want to do a deputation, or are you going to be part of the committee
No,
here?
I shouldn't be on the list. I didn't put
Okay.
a thing in. I just asked it for it to be called in. But
Lovely.
I didn't give an opinion.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. Are there any declarations of interest that colleagues need to declare? No. Okay, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting on the 5th of February, colleagues. Are you happy with the minutes of that meeting? Colleagues, thank you very much indeed. Okay, let's move on to the Venture Tower. And David.
Thank you, Chair. Lorna will present
Oh,
this
Lorna, sorry.
as the case officer. Thank you.
That's great.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So the application before you is for the change of use of Venture Tower floors 1 to 8 to form a student halls of residence comprising 100 rooms. It should be noted that this follows on from a scheme back in 2017, which was for a proposal to change floors 1 to 8 for 97 student rooms, which was approved at committee. This has later actually been implemented, and so if the agent wanted to, they could revert back to the 2017 scheme because it is lawfully been implemented. So as you can see, the Venture Towers, there's 2 entrances to the site. One is from Summers Road, and the other one is from Fratton Road. Just some pictures of the building at the moment. As you can see, the top floors are quite derelict and broken windows. The entrance to the undercroft area, the bottom photo, this is one of the future entrances to the site, and this will lead to the bin store and the bike store. Again, this is the east and south elevations and east and north elevations as you're going along Fratton Road. So you can see the building itself, so it is, will be done. The building itself the bricks will remain as they are. These are just the elevations, the south elevation, north elevation of what they will be turned into. There are some extensions being built to provide some additional accommodation. Again, you can see the existing brick of the building, which is being kept and retained, and it goes quite nicely with the black brick as a contrast to it. This is the ground floor plan. As you can see, the 2 entrances I mentioned previously, and the location of the bin and the bike stores. And if you come through the entrance off the Fratton Road, you will see you get into the first area you see is sort of like an area where you're sort of welcomed, and there will also be ground floor office space for the maintenance, so the management of the building will be there. This is the layout of the different room types. Each room is a good size. There's also communal areas which consist of, you can see there's a gym there, there's study rooms, there's laundry rooms. On one of the floors there's a cinema room. Next slide, yeah. Again, there's a good sized rooms, each with beds, small like kitchen area. There's different types of units as well. So you'll see this area here. They have a little 2 bedrooms and a little communal area for themselves. Next slide. This is the 3rd floor plan. There are a few flats that have a small terrace area. But again, each layout is pretty similar, each floor. The 4th floor plan, you'll see there is solar panels being proposed on the flat roof of the building, and the existing tower building itself will have an additional communal area being built. And again, the standard of rooms is still good. Here on this floor there is a small communal terrace area for some outdoor space. And this is the same layout for the next 6 to 8 floors. Overall, there is 3 staircases for the building. There is only 1 lift, which is the lift which was originally in the building. Okay. This is just some CGI images of what the rooms would look like. So this is the typical room that's available. So you can see it's got the bed area, like a kitchen area and a bathroom, the ensuite. These are the rooms in the tower itself. So again, the same facilities that you can see in the other rooms. And this is the studio apartment. So this is a slightly bigger room which can be available. Yeah. And that's everything.
Okay, just so I think it's important for people coming to speak to us, I just think it's just to make sure that we know where we are. Can I just confirm that this already has planning permission to become a student hall of residence, and if we say no today, that continues and they can be a hall of residence because it's got a planning permission that's happened and they've started on it. Is that correct?
That is correct. The permission back in 2017 was implemented. They did some groundworks outside, and this was confirmed by Builder Control and from the previous case officer, who then formally wrote to say that it had been implemented.
So
they could go back and build that one if they wanted to.
Okay, lovely. I think that's important for people coming and talking to us to know exactly where we are. Okay, thank you very much indeed. We now, I'm sorry, I have failed in my duty to give you the instructions about if there's a fire alarm. If there's a fire alarm, meet with Queen Victoria. And also people coming to speak to us, we live stream these meetings, and so you will be, your words of wisdom will be live streamed for the 3 people who are watching around the world. Okay. All right, so let's then move on. So we've got both Mr. Inman and Mr. Short wanted to come to talk to us on this issue. Are you happy to go in alphabetical order? Lovely. So you get 6 minutes. Let me start if I can make my phone work, start us off. Mr. Inman, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I wrote this before the news today. However, I think it's still relevant, so I'd still like to read out what I've had planned already. Venture Tower sits literally on the boundary of Charles Dickens and Fratton Wards. To further complicate matters, the application has the incorrect postcode. Currently, the application is stating Venture Tower is in PO1 5LD, which sites the building at the west end of Manor Road, north of St Mary's Church, whilst Venture Tower actually sits in PO1 5DL. This effectively places the property in a different ward than it is actually cited. This then made me wonder if a correct consultation had taken place. A Freedom of Information request shows that 32 properties had been notified, 6 are businesses within the Bridge Centre, 9 are from Magpie Court, residential in a different ward, and certainly not the nearest residents to be affected. The local mosque, which again is yet in another ward, had been informed, as well as the local Wetherspoons. Yet not residents in Vivash Road, Lucknow Street or any other road in the immediate area have been notified. So out of just the 32 notified properties, less than 20% can actually be classed as residents. Furthermore, public consultation was closed on the 1st of November 2024. However, since then, over 20 revised drawings have been submitted and accepted by the Planning Department. How can local residents comment and object to one set of drawings only for a different set to be considered today? This isn't the first time there's been confusion with this site. Currently, the council lists 3 related properties, all claiming to be Venture Tower. 63 to 65 Fratton Road, Venture Tower Summit Road North and Venture Tower 57 to 67 Fratton Road, with only 3 related cases between them. However, when you click on them individually, there are a total of 81 previous planning applications, all connected to previous businesses which have operated in Venture Tower. Planning was granted in 2017 under application 1701051/FUL for student accommodation, but was only for some 80 rooms, not the 100 being considered today. Since then, a lot have changed in terms of planning requirements, current facilities already provided, and the general population within Fratton. Although planning was approved, this came with conditions that have been ignored in this planning applications, which should be reimposed as a minimum. I would like to draw Councillors' attention to the parking of both motor vehicles and bicycles. In this plan, there is not a single parking space for vehicles. This includes for any staff, such as concierge, cleaners or engineers, or even tower management. Whilst the application is for student accommodation, this does not remove the need for providing limited spaces, even just for staff and contractors. The Parking Standards and Transport Assessment Supplementary Planning Document, July 2014, paragraph 4.12, clearly states that in any case, location alone will rarely be an acceptable reason to argue a reduced parking provision, with the exception of the city centre area, with other factors, in particular availability of parking in the surrounding area, being equally important. The Fratton District, as identified in the policy's Map Town Centres Sheet 1 City Towns and District Centres, published in July 2024, is clearly not in the city centre, stating it is 1 mile away. While the applicant has identified Asda as providing additional parking spaces, these are currently time limited, regardless of the numerous scam websites that are currently advertising car parking for sale at Asda. This will especially become an issue during Freshers' Week, where all 100 students will be moving in en masse, and hey-ho, at the end of term, will be moving out en masse, as what goes in has to come out. There's no commitment to making arrangements with Portsmouth City Council as per the planning permission that was granted in 2017 for such large movements. With the city centre being 1 mile away, this includes services such as the University Library, swimming pool and student union. These are all a good 30-minute walk from Venture Tower. This means that students will probably walk on rare occasions, or more often than not, cycle in or catch public transport. The applicant is only providing 40 cycle bays, according to the travel plan and drawings. I would like to dispute this, as the area is only approximately 7 metres long, 3 metres wide, and the policy for acceptable cycle parking spaces in the Parking Standards and Transport Assessments SPD paragraph 5.9 would not fit that many bicycles into such a small area. There's also no vision of modernising the bicycle storage to incorporate the era of privately owned electric bicycles. And I wanted to move on to something close to my heart. My cousin Jim is in a wheelchair and would have loved to attend university, but this would have needed a university to provide such living facilities as he lives in Cambridge. Currently we're in Portsmouth, there is only one Halls of Residence which offers fully accessible rooms, which is Bateson. It is therefore welcome that the applicant has made provision for 1 room on floors 1 through to 3, but has only paid lip service to them. They have provided very professional 3D examples of rooms A, B and C throughout floors 1 to 8. However, they have not given one example of how these fully accessible rooms will look, as none of these examples would fit the style. On top of this, they have failed to mention how these individuals will get to university. No mention in the travel plans of disabled people. They've been omitted from a bicycle storage facility to accommodate mobility scooters. And what is really important is they have failed to mention them in the fire statement.
Mr. Inman, you've had your 6 minutes.
Sorry.
Do you want to just quickly conclude?
Yeah, just to conclude, the disabled rooms haven't been fully thought through, and the fire plan is inadequate and doesn't meet requirements. And the Health and Safety Executive said that in their statement.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Next, Jacob, or Mr. Short, sorry.
I'm just going to time myself so I don't go over. Thank you. Dear members of the Planning Committee, I am here to speak against the planning application which seeks to convert the Venture Tower building into 100 student bedrooms. One of the most pressing issues with this application is the complete lack of allocated parking. Designing a development for 100 students under the assumption that they will not require parking is unrealistic and short-sighted. While some students may rely on public transport, many still own cars, especially those attending university from further afield or with practical course requirements. The influx of the student vehicles will inevitably lead to additional cars occupying limited on-street parking. This will put further strain on an area already suffering from a shortage of parking spaces, negatively impacting residents who rely on these spaces for their daily needs. Next, introducing 100 student residents to a well-established community raises concerns about antisocial behaviour. Students frequently change accommodation, which reduces the likelihood of them developing a sense of responsibility and care for the local community. Noise disturbances, late-night activities and inconsiderate behaviour are common concerns in areas with high student populations. The concentration of a large number of students in one location may lead to an increase in complaints and place an additional strain on resources such as law enforcement and community safety services. Portsmouth is in dire need of affordable housing, particularly for families and key workers. Venture Tower presents a perfect opportunity to provide much-needed public housing. The area is already well served by primary and secondary schools, offers easy access to public transport and has a local high street right on its doorstep, making it an ideal location for families. Approving student accommodation over affordable housing ignores the needs of the wider community and doesn't prioritise long-term stability for Portsmouth families. Another significant concern is the impact of adding 100 student rooms on the local sewage system, which is already outdated and under strain. The increase in water waste passing through the system will worsen existing issues, potentially leading to blockages, overflows and increased maintenance costs. Local residents already experience problems with drainage, and this development will only worsen the situation, increasing the risk of environmental damage and public health concerns. The addition of 100 students will place further strain on local amenities, particularly NHS services such as GP appointments, dental services and hospital resources. Portsmouth already struggles with long waiting times for medical appointments, and increase in residents without corresponding healthcare provisions will only make these issues worse. Furthermore, the area lacks easily accessible job opportunities for students, like increasing the likelihood of economic strain or students commuting elsewhere for work, adding further congestion to public transport and road networks. Beyond these practical concerns, the proposal does not fit with the existing character of the area. The transformation of Venture Tower into high-density student housing disrupts the balance of the community and alters the aesthetic appeal of the neighbourhood. Long-standing residents have built a cohesive and engaged community, and this development threatens to undermine that sense of stability and belonging. In conclusion, given the amount of flaws in this application, including inadequate parking, increased risk of antisocial behaviour, failure to address Portsmouth's housing needs, insufficient community consultation, lack of disability considerations, the disruption to local aesthetics, and others that I don't have time to discuss, it is clear that this proposal is not in the best interest of the community. I strongly urge the Planning Committee to reject this application and instead consider future proposals that align with the long-term needs of Portsmouth residents. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, colleagues. George.
Sorry to butt in, Chair, but first of all, I'd like to clarify off the back of that deputation about our legal position in relation to putting the wrong postcode down. I feel that I haven't seen this Freedom of Information request. I feel that if that exists and our officers have admitted that they've sent letters to wrong areas, I mean, I've just Google mapped it. It's definitely listed in the wrong address in the wrong ward, so I've definitely just checked that. If there is a Freedom of Information request that exists that officers have admitted that they haven't given the relevant notice to the relevant people, we're up for judicial review. So I don't know whether we need to check legal first.
Well, I think we'll start with David first as head of the department.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, and whilst the deputations were being undertaken, I've taken the opportunity to look at the letters sent on our systems. So our legal requirements are to either erect a site notice or send letters to neighbouring properties. Portsmouth takes the decision to do both. In this instance, it's a major application, so we did need to do a site notice anyway. We did do the site notices, so we complied with that statutory requirement. Looking at the system, notwithstanding, we've acknowledged the incorrect postcode listed. I can see from our systems that the letters to adjoining properties were sent. So that's our requirement. That's what we commit to do in our statement of community involvement. So I can see that those letters were sent to the adjacent properties. So from the information that I can see, I'm satisfied that we've complied with what we needed to do.
Okay, and can I ask, David, what distance would normally define neighbouring properties?
Yeah, so adjoining is defined in the SCI, the Statement of Community Involvement, and that's sharing a common boundary with the site. So the red line site, if you share a common boundary with the site, that would be where we send the neighbour letters to.
So if it's just across the road, we don't?
In this instance, we've gone wider than that, and I can see that we've gone to properties opposite, on the opposite side of Fratton Road as well, and including, for example, the mosque, which is not adjoining, physically adjoining the site, south of the site as well.
Well, a property they hold is right adjoining to the site. It's separated from the main mosque, but okay. Juliet, in terms of Councillor Madgwick's concern, are we legally okay to proceed or not?
Officers have confirmed that they've complied with the statutory requirements and our statement of community involvement. So, as far as I'm concerned, yes, they have.
Okay. Councillor Madgwick, are you happy with that?
Yeah, absolutely. If the legal advice is that, it's just obviously the application does say the wrong postcode. So as long as we're absolutely clear that that's fine and we can't be legally challenged, I'm more than happy. Chair, thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, if I heard Mr. Inman's deputation properly, he suggested it was sent, information was sent to the wrong mosque. To which mosque was the information sent?
The answer should be the central mosque, as it's on the other side of the road, and their building to look after the preparations of bodies for burial is right adjoining the property.
Yeah, so Chair, just to confirm, initial letters sent 23rd September, then 9th of October to Portsmouth Central Mosque, Summers Road North, Portsmouth.
Thank you. Okay. Colleagues, any questions to the officers from members of the committee? Matthew.
Thank you, Chair. One of the differences from the approved scheme is the external treatment and the change of materials. Now, I find it concerning that we've not had any information back from the Hampshire Fire and Rescue. I was wondering if any of the officers could share any communications they've had with HFR.
So, Matthew, so is that a concern about whether the proposal to put something on the outside of the building would heighten the fire risk?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, with history being as it is, I think it's important that we get some information on that.
Okay.
No response was received from them on the application. We did go to the Health and Safety Executive because of the amount of stories that they have, and from the fire regs from that point, and they were satisfied with it. But from the actual Hampshire and themselves, no response was received from them.
So does the Health and Safety Executive trump the HFR in this matter?
Chairman, in my experience with Summers Orchard, where the Health and Safety Executive were heavily involved, I don't know if they trump them or not, but they are certainly extremely assiduous with every detail you can imagine, as you would expect.
Okay, and maybe, Matthew, one of the things we need to do is to pass a message back through Councillor Madgwick to the Hampshire Fire Authority to say it would be useful if the fire brigade did respond to things.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, Chair. I don't know why they wouldn't have responded. I'm happy to express our concerns as a committee.
I think what happens Councillor Madgwick, is that if they don't have a concern, they don't respond. Simon?
Also, from my experience with Summers Orchard with the tall buildings, from recollection, the fire service were aware of the development and were happy that the HSE were covering everything.
Okay. Okay, other questions, colleagues? I can see Councillor... I've got three now. So Councillor Candlish, Councillor Smythe and Councillor Mason.
So I had been hovering with a related question, which is there is only one lift in the property, and it's a tall property. 2017 is one thing. We're now in a different world around this. Are we still happy around that? And that, I guess, links to the fire questions as well.
Well, in a fire, they would ask people not to use the lift.
I think that would be sound advice from the chair for people to adopt that approach. But are we happy with in today's world? Are we happy with the fire safety position of the building?
So there's 3 different stairways located around the building. So if there is a fire emergency, they have got 3 different ways to get out of the building. So there's not just one. So from that point of view, yes.
Councillor Smythe.
I've got some questions, a sequence of questions about the, and I appreciate that it already has a planning permission, and in many ways the scheme is quite strong. But I have questions about the definition of student accommodation. As far as I can understand it, that means there'll be a sort of Section 106 agreement restricting the use, and I wondered how much flexibility there is there for us to make sure that this could be occupied by other people other than students, and what is the definition of a student, and is a student housing a use class order of its own? Would they have to come back for permission to house other people in the accommodation?
Thank you. David?
So, yes, if I think first question, if you look at the recommendation for the legal agreement, Chair, that includes a student management plan in terms of management of the building, which will address some of the issues that you've heard mentioned in the deputations, like drop-off and pick-up, for example, at term end, term beginning. Yes, it's not a dwelling house, so it's effectively a sui generis use in terms of planning, so it could not be used as permanent residential accommodation without needing change of use. You'll see some of the rooms, by the nature of various sizes, so some of them would not be acceptable under our space standards as individual flats, but potentially they could be, with some work and permission, converted, I imagine, in the future. But yes, it would, in effect, be controlled through that way, Chair.
I'm less worried about controlling it as to making it available should it not be taken up by students, or should it... could you give me the... what is our standard size for student accommodation? Some of the places I've been online and seen the plans seem to be very large, generous rooms. For example, with houses in multi-occupancy, we have very strict size limits. Are the size limits for student accommodation is my first question. Secondly, if so, are there any of the rooms in this development that are smaller than that size? And thirdly, is there any reason why people other than students shouldn't occupy the property?
So in regards to the size, we do have a student halls SPD, which says that a single room should be 7 metres squared and single with an ensuite should be 10 to 15 metres squared. So these rooms, top of my head, are bigger than that. So they're...
I mean, what you said, well, that they were a good size. Could you give us some actual sizes of the rooms here, please?
Yes, just bear with me. Let me just get my plans. So we've got a student apartment which is 28.2 square metres, and then a room which is 20.3, 20 square metres, 18.6.
What's the smallest room in the development? And what size is that?
So the smallest ones will be, they're just over 16 metres, and they are part of the, where it's just the room, and they share a kitchen lounge. So it's 2 bedrooms will be sharing communal facilities. So they are the smallest at 16.4.
Okay, so they're all a decent size of room. How would it be? It says it's for 100 students in 100 study bedrooms. How would the Section 106 restrict it to 100 people doing with single occupancy of those spaces, or would it be possible for people to move in as a couple?
Chair, just whilst Lorna is checking, if that was a concern, obviously a condition could be imposed with a maximum occupancy. What I would say is, looking at some of the studio apartments, you know, the 30 square metres wouldn't necessarily be unusual for to be shared by a couple. That wouldn't necessarily be unreasonable if they were actually at the university, but if it was a concern, members could attach a limit.
Another question then. Does the definition of a student have to mean a student at our local university here, or could it be somebody who's a student elsewhere, somebody on an apprenticeship, somebody doing a degree as a mature person? What is required to demonstrate that somebody is a student, and is it ever checked?
Chair, again, that sounds something like would be dealt with in the management plan to ensure that occupants are enrolled on a course. I've no idea. If there's a market, then there's more than one further education institution which would be appropriate for, rather than just the University of Portsmouth. However, most people would obviously look to attend the university close by to where their teaching buildings are, so that would be our expectation. I've never heard of necessarily being a problem for occupation outside of the students not attending the university.
And the last question then is, in our new local plan, we have got a condition that says that any student accommodation should be capable of being converted for normal occupancy by other people needing such housing. I mean, on the face of it, some of these are very generous studio flats and could be very useful for people from the housing waiting list, or requiring some kind of minimal management in their housing. How easy would it be to convert this? And just to confirm what I think I heard you say before, is that it would have to come back for planning permission as a change of use or a change of the Section 106 agreement. How does that mechanism work, please?
Just to give you an example, looking, maybe if you go up just to the tower, maybe Simon, to the taller parts. On here where you've got the lower floors, you've actually got a lot of floor space in which to work with. But even if you look at the upper floors...
Should we have a look at slide 13?
No, that's the previous scheme.
Oh, sorry, my apology.
Yeah, so, so if you look, say, at that core, you could easily foresee knocking through those partitions to make a one-bed, possibly two-bed unit, make 4 units up there. You've already got the plumbing and heating, etc. in there, so, and you've still got the stair cores for safety on either side. You're served by a central corridor. So that, I imagine, would easily not easily, there will be work involved, but it's feasible to convert that into traditional residential units if needed in the future. So I don't think that's ruled out at all. And yes, just to confirm that, that would need a planning permission in the future.
Okay. We now count Councillor Mason and then Councillor Atwell.
Thank you. One or two questions. Looking at the plans, there would appear to be only one stairwell which runs the whole height of the building. The stairway in the east does not appear to reach the ground floor. Could you show us where the various levels are for the various stairways, and were one coming down the eastern stairway, how one would reach the ground floor? Question one.
David, are you going to do that?
If you go above that, you will find that there seems to be a stairway. Of the two stairways in the tower, one is to the east. So there we are, 4th floor, you begin to find the stairway to the east. Now, how, if you're coming down that and it doesn't go further down, do you reach another stairway to egress the building? I'm just worried about people getting out in case of fire.
So if you follow a Simon's cursor will show, you can go to there's another staircase just there, or if you go to the south, if you go south, there is another one there.
Okay, let's just hope that there isn't a fire on that floor, because that could cause chaos. My second question is a matter which was brought up by both of the deputations, which is the adequacy of sewerage. Does the sewers from that building, do they run into the large sewer running down Fratton Road or into a side road sewerage?
Unfortunately, I don't know where the sewers run to. We did consult Southern Water on this application, and they had no concerns regarding the proposal.
Okay. Then in 5.2, you mention a substation within the building. How will substations are usually very safe, but how will we ensure that this one is an all-time safe?
So it will be behind the doors, so you can't get to it. And there are some conditions attached to that regarding the noise for it. But it is being located, as you can see on the plans.
Yeah, I can see where it's located.
We can get some additional details for it, so to ensure we can add that as a condition if needed.
I think we need to make absolutely sure it's safe, because that is very high-powered electrical equipment. My last question concerns the adequacy of the cycle bays. This was raised by Mr. Inman, but I also noted that there are only 40 cycle bays for 100 student residences. Is this generally considered to be adequate, and is the size of the room in which the cycle bays are located, is this big enough for 40?
So the cycle store has been looked at by the highways officers, and they are satisfied that it is large enough. And yes, I agree, the number is less than required in the SPD. It is an increase than the previous scheme, and and the justification of the reduced number is due to the sustainable location that it has. It is in walking distance to a number of shops, you know, as is just there. You can walk to it to university. There is a bus stop located nearby and also a train station. So there are other modes that you can use.
I am not convinced that this is adequate because whilst a person may walk to the shops, they may also require a bicycle to get to the university. There may well be, I see no reason why there should not be 100 students wanting to store 100 bicycles, although they might occasionally use the bus to go to the university or to go into the centre of town.
Okay, Councillor Atwell.
First question is, how many laundry rooms are there?
Okay, I'm going to have to count them, but there are a number on the different floors. I can show you if you'd like to see some of them.
You have an aspiration for clean students.
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
So there's one on the first floor. Oh, it's not going to... So there's one on the first floor. There's one on the third floor. That's the next one. Just there, there's another one. And there's one on the fifth floor just there as well, yeah.
3 laundry rooms for 4. 3 or 4. I thought it would be double counted.
Several.
Well, if that's
Let's
enough,
answer the question. How many are there?
Double counted the third floor. No, 3 laundry rooms.
3 separate ones, Chair.
3 separate, yeah. 3 separate laundry rooms for 100 rooms.
Mm-hmm. No.
Yeah, wasn't sure I felt I saw enough laundry facilities. The other question is, I know materials are secured by condition, but is there an image or sort of a mock-up of how the changes to colours and things might look? Because that's one of the things we're being asked to look at.
So they are the proposed plans. So the existing building, the tall aspect, that will be staying as the brick it is now. And then the bits underneath it will be that darker shade.
My question is, what did it look like on the original plan? We might think it looked better before.
Do you mean the one which was approved back in 2017?
Yeah.
Those are the ones back in 2017.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Smythe.
I'd like to pick up the concern about bicycles. I don't think 40 cycle bays, and they're all crammed in together, are enough. Also, the question of mobility scooters and access for wheelchairs, people who need to have a wheelchair accessible room need also to have access to things like the laundry room and other things. And I'd like to see much more attention paid to the needs of students in wheelchairs, because there's so little available for them already in the community if they come to Portsmouth University. And this would be a really good opportunity, given the size of some of the rooms is ample to be adapted for a wheelchair user. But you need to then extend that to access to laundry rooms, to common rooms and so forth on that particular floor. Could we put a condition on to that effect in this situation? It's in this day and age, it's just out of the question to have new build accommodation that's not properly wheelchair accessible, at least for the building in part.
David?
Yes, Chair, I just to be careful about straying into areas which are governed by the regimes, particularly building regs, in terms of accessibility to the building. So we would expect building regs to ensure that those accessible areas Clearly, we want to show that the design's taken account of it, but actually, in terms of securing that, that would be a matter for building regs. Just to, also on the issue of the cycle parking, it's just to emphasise the point that, as we've said before, we're committed to a scheme on site already. The parking provision for that, doing the maths, 8, 16, 32, is only 32 cycle spaces, so we are achieving better than the fallback position, Chair.
Okay. Any more questions? Councillor Madgwick.
I'll reel off my questions all at once. In relation to fire safety, has there been a consideration in the numbers for visitors and guests in getting them out the building at one time? And if so, how many can occupy the building at one time, and how will that be managed? The second question is, obviously you've got disabled rooms on different floors. What proposals are there, obviously because you can't use the lift, so what safety proposals are there in relation to getting them out the building? And the third question, which was brought up by Carl Inman, was the planning conditions on the first application 2017. I've just Googled it and there seems to be a lot of conditions. Are they automatically going to be attached to this new planning application, or are we going to have to manually attach them if we wish to?
David.
So I'll take the last question first. So the conditions that we're proposing are the ones on the report, Chair, with the recommendation as shown this time round. So those would be the conditions we're recommending this time round. In terms of the numbers of people who may be in the building at any one time, again, that's a matter for the management plan of the which we intend to attach to the legal agreement. Clearly, we would expect the occupiers to be able to invite guests if they do, but I imagine there will be rules in the management plan about staying over and the like. In terms of absolute numbers in the buildings, no, don't have a figure for that. I need to remember that it would have been an office building in the past. It's been an office building for some time. Clearly, we'd expect numbers within that building to easily meet 100 when it was an office building. So in terms of access and escape from that, this is a less intense use than the office use would have been in the past. So we would expect, and again, we need not to stray into matters that are covered by building regs in terms of those safety aspects. Sorry if I've missed one of the questions. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Candlish, then Councillor Smythe.
So I didn't think we quite got to the bottom of the cycle piece as well, because there was also a challenge around the relative size, how tightly we were packing in those bicycles, and to be honest, I don't know whether we have a standard around that. And we have said that 40 is better than 32, or whatever it was, but what would the standard actually normally be, assuming that we had? So we're being asked to approve a deviation. I accept it's better than it was, but is it good enough? That's what we're deciding in 2025 and the unique application in front of us.
So I think in that regard, Chair, we're guided by the highways officers. So if the cycle parking's inadequate, they will tell us and we will seek to improve that. So as you know, your internal experts on these issues about levels of provision and the usability for occupiers, we're guided by our internal experts and they haven't raised objection in this instance.
So if I see the 40 is a correct number, which I'm happy to do, so I haven't seen it and they are the people who do this kind of stuff. What about the question about the comparison versus what our standard sets?
I hope I've understood the question, but if the Highways Authority thought the cycle parking was substandard, I imagine they would relay that to us and ask us to secure more. So if they wanted a higher level, I imagine that they would have objected to the scheme and you know, the case we would have secured more cycle parking.
David, I think the question is fairly simple. There is a standard with a multiplier in it. What does that multiplier produce for 100 student rooms?
So for the student accommodation, it should be the guidance, the SPD is 1 room per student, but it does say that the council can accept a lower standard if they can justify the number of spaces based on proposed with obviously where it is, where it's located, with facilities, if it's in walking distance. So we can accept a lower number.
Okay, but I'm not an expert in these things, but I am expected to exert some judgment over this. I don't know what level of this deviation from the standard I'm being asked to accept. Is it possible to tell me?
Yeah, so the answer then was 100 spaces, one per
I
room.
heard room. So was it 1 bicycle per room?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'm being asked to support 40 rather than 100, which is better than 32, but quite a deviation.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Smythe.
Ask a similar question about that. I'd like to ask a question. Is there room for 1 or, say, 5 students who rely on wheelchair use to have a adapted car or somewhere they can be picked up by car or taxi on the site, a parking space for disabled vehicle, or on the neighbouring streets? I feel this is all a bit half-baked, and that's another area that I'd want to see a bit more attention. Is there access by vehicle for somebody who is living in this accommodation where the rooms seem to be fine, but other things that makes it possible for them to access the room, maybe not? Is there anywhere on the plan where there could be a number of wheelchair accessible parking spaces, or could they be made accessible on the highway?
So I don't believe there's any space for parking on the site. Outside the building, it does have the parking spaces and the laybys outside that you could be using for short term to be able to get people to and from the building.
This isn't acceptable for disabled people who are living. This is their accommodation during term time, and if they want to take advantage of this accommodation and are relying on a wheelchair, they will need somewhere permanently available, not temporary space.
Councillor Atwell, question.
Just want to go back to there seems to be some discrepancy around conditions. Do we know what the differences are between the conditions set in the previous application and this application?
Most of the conditions have been carried across. So the ones that have changed are relating to, obviously the plan numbers are different, and there are some additional ones that have been added regarding the noise. Some of the noise conditions have been changed, but mostly the same conditions have been taken across.
But I guess my question is, I don't know what that means. What is mostly?
So all the key ones. So the ones that are still relevant. So the ones that are still relevant. So the ones, as I said, so the plan numbers, that's changed, so that hasn't gone across. But the ones regarding materials, that's gone across. The ones regarding, just reading my conditions. So sorry, the completion of the works, the traffic management plan has gone across, the waste storage has gone across, the landscaping, ventilation, that's gone across but amended slightly to follow on the information that's been submitted. The roof terrace, and then I think we've added ecology onto it. I would like to point out as well on conditions, the wording for condition 13 has been amended slightly and is in the update sheet.
Okay, is that the end of questions, colleagues? Councillor Adair.
Just one quick question. Is there going to be any provision for e-scooters? The only reason I ask, if we had e-scooter provision, it might deter the students from bringing their motor vehicles to the city.
I think that the plan was talking about the cycle store being for cycles and e-scooters. Is that correct?
And if so, do we know how many e-scooters? I'm sure if they had e-scooters, they're probably not, so they're going to put them off bringing their cars to the city.
Well, I think they're going to have significant problems parking anywhere because it's all residents parking around there, and I don't think they'd qualify.
Sorry, in terms of e-scooters, aren't they just the Voi ones that are stored on the street?
No, you can go and buy them in Halfords.
You can, but I don't know that they'd be able to.
You're not meant to
you're not
use
allowed to
them,
use
but the
them.
police refuse to enforce that.
Well, that's a different matter.
They also have dangerously flammable batteries, so they probably will
Yes,
be banned.
that's why I'm thinking they wouldn't be allowed to be stored in there.
Chair, I'm about to have to declare an interest as the Cabinet Member for Transport. And I think genuinely there are some related things around this. So again, I could have started to get into when we were considering the size of the cycle bay, what are we assuming that the bikes are? So electric bikes are also increasing in number and therefore in size. There are different formats. So hence my concern over the 40 to 100 ratio. Scooters are both electric and also petrol. So if we're going to get down this rabbit hole, we really need to be quite precise about what our definitions are, and realistically, I'm not sure that it applies to much of this planning application. Most of these things which are not ordinary pedal bicycles will not be fitting in that bike store and will therefore have to find their place on the street. On the street, they have the same legal rights as any other thing on the street, which in many cases means they don't have a right to be there because, for example, they wouldn't have a residence parking zone permit.
Okay. George, and then I think we do need to then move on and come to a conclusion.
I just think myself and Councillor Atwell really still haven't got an answer. We know what conditions are being brought across. We just want to know what conditions were put in 2017 and do not exist on this one. It's all well and good hearing what does, but we need to know what doesn't, so that we need to decide as a committee whether we need to still... So we just need to know what ones are missing from the 2017. I think that's the basic question we definitely need the answer to.
Okay.
Chair, I do think that this is something that if members should look at before coming to committee, you know, asking an officer to go through every single condition at committee is a bit difficult.
That seems to be an entirely appropriate thing. That's what we're here for. So, David.
Yeah, Chair, we'll try and provide clarity on that. So, 2017 permission, first condition, usual time limit, 3 years. Second condition, plans list. Third condition is about materials. Fourth condition is about completing all the external alterations.
And David, are all of those carried across? So you're just going to tell us the ones that aren't?
Oh, I need to work through
Yeah,
this.
of course. Yeah, absolutely.
The fifth condition is about drainage. Sixth conditions about ventilation and aircon. Seventh condition is about the dispersal of fumes. Eighth condition is about noise and insulating the noise. Ninth condition is about construction management plan. 10th condition is about landscaping. 11th is the bike storage. 12th is the refuse stores. And the 13th is about the use of the terrace. So my understanding is all of those are covered in the current application, and there are additional conditions as well.
So your view is there are no conditions that were imposed in 17 that are not on the list for 2025. Is that correct, David?
So the only difference, Chair, sorry, apologies, is just about there was a drainage condition on the 2017 consent. Yeah, but we haven't had any, as we said, we haven't had any objections to Southern Water this time around.
Okay. Okay, colleagues, can we've talked about this quite a lot. Now let's come to some conclusions, and the options are that we say yes to this, we say no to this, and then the previous application remains live, or we defer this because if we want to know more and get some more answers. So, colleagues, where are we going? Mary, are you waving? No, I'm not waving. Oh, I think you just bought something for £1 million at an auction. I hear from the committee quite a lot of concerns about this and wanting more information. We don't have the applicant here. They don't have to come. I'm wondering whether we should defer this for a site visit so that people can walk around this to have a look at it and see where it was, and maybe meet the applicant, or do people want to come to a conclusion today? Judith, sorry,
This
Councillor
is a
Smythe.
question about, could we strengthen some of the conditions to take into account our concerns, particularly for bicycle storage? I mean, I think probably we're feeling about this that it's a little bit overdeveloped, and that they may need to actually create some more space by losing a unit or two. I'm still concerned about amount of laundry. You know, the idea of coming out of your room downstairs, laundry, then not being able to watch it very easily when you're in the middle of a piece of work for the university. It's a bit kind of mean on things like that. And also there's the point about bicycle storage, which I think is not enough. In practice, somewhere for bicycle storage would also be used occasionally for a canoe that somebody might have brought down to go in the sea and things. And it's just kind of it seems to me that it is just a bit mean on some of those things that would make this an ambitious and sensible place, but also the wheelchair things. Those are the three things that worry me. I think the development itself looks quite nice. I think the rooms look very nice. The standard of the rooms is I mean, they're large. I'm now satisfied that they would have to come back for planning permission to change the use. I wish it wasn't thus. I think we need to have a look at policy on that kind of thing so that we maximise the opportunities for young people who are apprentices or people who are just homeless people to use this sort of accommodation. But I realise that's a debate for another time and another place.
So
I don't know, I'm asking for advice here. Well, how's the best way to deal with the fact of our... And I mean, I think the building itself looks nice, the rooms look nice, but it's just got a few things that could make it a really superb development for students to live in, as opposed to somewhere that's always going to feel slightly insufficient in terms of the communal space, the communal facilities, especially the cycle storage. And if you add to that somebody's mobility scooter, you've used up 2 or 3 cycle spaces, it just doesn't stand up. And I'm still a bit worried about that corridor that doesn't lead to the ground floor, that stairs that doesn't lead to the ground floor.
Okay, so that sounds as if you're looking for some additional conditions. David, could you give Councillor Smythe some advice?
Yes, so let's tackle one issue. Going to the fallback position, looking at the approved scheme, there's only one laundry approved on the fallback position for the entire development. So I'm concerned about any requirement to increase that above and beyond what they've already shown. I don't think we'd be able to defend that, Chair. Again, I say I have to repeat the advice given previously about us straying into issues that are building reg matters about accessibility within the scheme, and also the issue that the number of bike spaces has been considered by your highways officers who don't object. So that's where we are in terms of the weight that we would give to that. They're satisfied there are other ways and means to get from the site to the university, and there's a lot of facilities available nearby as well. So we would be concerned about any conditions that we couldn't defend which are unreasonable, Chair. And just in case there's a bit of confusion, although the applicant didn't ask to speak, we do understand they are actually in the room.
Chair, could I just check with officers, are there any specific standards on things like laundry rooms?
No, so that's as far as we understand.
So, if we do have the applicant here, are you able to help us with answering any of the questions?
Yes, sorry, Chair, I should have introduced myself properly.
No problem
I'm
at
the
all.
director of Mikasa Developments, which owns the property. I didn't have anything to say about the deputation, but to answer some of the concerns, there is no standard in terms of like laundry rooms that are required, but our thought process was that we've actually got 4 laundry rooms, not 3. So there's one on every second floor, so each student would either need to go up or down the floor or on the same floor to access the laundry room. From what I've seen on other developments, there's usually 1 or 2 laundry rooms and students travel quite far. So I think we've we've tried to be a bit more accommodating by providing that. In terms of the bike store, we are limited by the amount of space that's available in the service yard, as we have to also allow access for the commercial units which are on the ground floor, which will still be operating. We've tried to maximize, and as the officers have said, highways have cleared the requirements. I think one of the earlier queries which was speaking to apartments, or should the student accommodation no longer be needed, we've thought about that and designed the building in a modular fashion, so that if in the future there's no longer a need for student accommodation, with minimal works we can convert this into an apartment building for whatever need is required by converting 2 or 3 rooms into various apartment configurations, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. So we have thought about that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, colleagues, I think we need to come to a conclusion. I'm happy to propose the officer recommendation, but with a limit of 100 residents being able to use the building. Are you happy to second that, Mary? Are there any other proposals? Councillor Shah? No, scratching ear. Yes. That's right. Are there any other proposals? Are there any other conditions, colleagues, you think you would want to put in that are sustainable? No? Okay. As that's the only proposal on the table, can I see those in favour? Please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against, please show. And that's 2. And those abstaining is 1. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Planning permission is granted. Personally, I've known this as an empty building for 25 years, and having an empty building in that location, such a prominent location, for 25 years is not good for the city. So it is good to see it will have a use. We're not able to define and say to people, you will make it student accommodation, you'll make it not student accommodation. That's not what the law allows. The people who own properties are allowed to make applications to do what they want with it. And that's the law of the land. Okay, thank you very much indeed for that one. Let's move on to 35 Sandringham Road.
Oh no, you've got 95 Queen's Road. Apologies, yeah, we're just getting the right, correct presentation up. Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is an application for a change of use of the property to from an existing C4 house in multiple occupation to a 7-bed, 7-person HMO. There are no updates from the SMAP today. Here's the site. You'll see very typical terraced house, similar to many in the area. Here's a view from the front. So the site is existing already HMO. So going to your mix and balance communities tests in the SPD and your policy, you see the property in the middle there. Note from the report that there are already 17 HMOs out of 64 properties in the area, so we're 26% over the 10% in your policy, but as the property is already a HMO, there's no change to that, so it still continues to comply. Just looking at the existing floor plan, so it could be used up to 6 persons. It's currently laid out for 4, with 3 bedrooms at first floor and 1 to the ground floor. And communal living space on the ground floor as well. So proposals also involve the roof extension of the property at the second floor, and the resulting remodelling downstairs will mean 2 bedrooms on the ground floor with the communal kitchen and living space. At first floor, we will still have 3 bedrooms, but then all be en suite. And then in the loft conversion in the roof, we get 2 more additional bedrooms, taking us to the 7. Here's how the property looks at the moment, and then the proposed alterations to erect the dormer on the back is permitted development and doesn't form part of this particular planning application, so they can carry out those works as they see fit when and if. So just a cross-section in there, that just shows the space and head height within the dormer that gets created. As you see, there is actually a stairs down into a basement, we've noted in the report, but this doesn't form part of the floor space. And then just some photos taken from the site where the works are in progress when the case officer went to the site. So, Chair, with this application, again, it's an existing HMO, it could be used up to 6 persons. The physical alterations don't need planning permission, they're permitted development. The resulting building at a 7-bed, 7-person HMO, we do not believe is a material change of use. And therefore, that's why our recommendation is an unconditional permission, as our view is that there is a fallback position to carry out the works and create the larger HMO without needing planning permission. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Farr.
Thank you. This application before you is, as we would always expect, fully compliant with policies PCS 20, 17 and 23, as well as the HMO SPD and the space and amenity standards as defined by the housing team. I should point out as well, this has been a HMO for quite a long time. It's not part of a 2-stage application. Our clients are good landlords providing good accommodation for good tenants. We maybe don't emphasise enough that these conversions require a back-to-brick approach, upgrading the electrics, the plumbing, thermal insulation, sound insulation and energy efficiency. This is not cheap, but it's necessary to achieve the best finish possible for future occupiers. Unlike a lot of HMOs, this one did not require a 6-metre extension at the back to provide the communal space. We've just upgraded the existing projection, a standard extension with big double doors offering adequate light and ventilation to the communal area. All bedrooms are for single use only and all comply with your space standards. The application attracted a few comments, and there are a few matters raised that I think it's important to address today. Starting with the queries, well, more of questions from Councillor Ashmore. The nitrate contributions are always paid upon request and always prior to decision. How these contributions are used to mitigate the nitrates problem is a question for the planners that I'm not in a position to answer. The reason we always state that the kitchen fittings are subject to change is because the licensing requirements are subject to change. As we prefer to work with good landlords, there is an expectation to anticipate changes and be adaptable when necessary. Moving on to some of the other comments, it was mentioned that some rooms only just meet the space standards. The point is that they do meet the standards. As an alternative, we could have reduced the room sizes to 7.5 metres squared, replaced the en-suites with shared bathrooms and increased the communal space and still have met the standards. But we prefer to make efficient use of the space to design a higher level of accommodation and provide occupiers with a decent amount of private amenity. Adequate thought is put into the emergency exits. The plans would not be approved by building control if this wasn't accounted for. And finally, there was one objection which name dropped me, and normally I would just brush this off and move on, but it's becoming more and more common, so I think it's time to nip it in the bud as I'm being referenced more and more. I was notified by the networking platform LinkedIn that some familiar names were viewing my profile, so I was expecting something to be mentioned. So to get the elephant out of the room, I'm not the first and won't be the last former employee of the planning department who has furthered their career in a planning role. I've got a thirst for knowledge and a knack for information and every right to build on what I have learned and continue my career path to provide for my family. A handful of regular objectors are now suggesting there's a conspiracy. Absolutely not. When I left the council around a year ago, after 6 years, there was no fanfare, no handshakes, no best wishes. So it didn't end particularly well, but we've moved on. We're not in cahoots. I'm a professional, the planning officers are professionals, and there's no bad blood, just a very civil and very professional relationship and nothing more. I actually left to quite a big company 12 months ago, but it wasn't the right fit for me. And just at the right time, Apple Corps came knocking. I believe the term is they slid into my DMs, and I haven't looked back. It's very clear that these conspiracy theorists are targeting my team and I. You can look at other HMOs we have no part in, where the same old names don't comment, and they're much closer to them than our Southsea applications, which don't impact the parking in North End. Public access does allow them to search by my name, so it's easy to target me. I don't know what they're expecting to achieve, other than result in us being here every 3 weeks. I don't have a personal issue with them, and normally I wouldn't be bothered, but it's blatant targeting and stalking me on social media is bordering on harassment, and it's starting to get a bit boring now. So to conclude, Apple Corps are an architectural and planning service with a finite role in development. Property developers appreciate our services, and providing high-quality design is one of the reasons why. We do HMOs, new builds, householder alterations and more, all over the country. The application before you is just one of these. It's a good design. A finished build will be an excellent building. As per the case officer's recommendation, it's a fully compliant application, so I thank you for listening. I hope I've made my position clear, and I respectfully ask that you approve the proposal today. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, the first thing we have to do is to decide whether this needs planning permission, and as normal I'd propose that it clearly does, moving from 6 to 7, where the planning permission they have is for 6, we know from the feedback we've got that HMOs create additional pressure in terms of parking, antisocial behaviour, rubbish and noise, and therefore it is appropriate for us to look for planning permission. Could I have a seconder for that, please?
A second.
Thank you. Can I see those in favour of seeking this needs planning permission, please show. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, questions to the officers? Councillor Atwell.
It's just, I can't read it on the report or on the screen. What's that tiny wording on bedrooms 4 and 7? I'm sure it's of no consequence, but it's annoying me that I can't read it. Where there's a dotted line, 4 and 7. And there's an arrow with some very tiny writing.
Not counting corridor, it would seem to say.
Oh, was that just, I mean, I know we have this conversation very often, but can things be a bit bigger?
Yes, it's just indicating that the size that's been measured isn't including the little corridor lobby.
Okay. But I think, David, that's a sensible point to say, if you're putting something into a report, can it be big enough that we can read it?
Noted.
Thank you. That'd be helpful. Colleagues, any questions? No? Comments? This is an application that sits within our rules, and therefore I can't see a sustainable reason for saying no, so I'm happy to propose to propose the normal recommendations in terms of timing, SPA, bird tax, nitrates, etc. David, do you want to run through the normal?
Yes, Chair. So obviously there would be commencement, so 3 years, a plans list, the provision of the bicycle store, and the bird aware, the water efficiency,
and the bird tax.
And so that would be needed secured by an agreement rather than condition. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So they would be our standard conditions. Councillor Madgwick.
Just want to make a couple of comments first.
Of course.
First of all, as I say, I'm not in planning very often, so you have to bear with me. But obviously, the 10.01, we all know obviously that's a centimetre, and it does meet our space requirements. However, I was in a meeting the other day, Chair. It's only a comment, not a question. I was in the meeting the other day where we were told that the officers don't always go to check the properties when they apply for the licence to make sure they have been compliant. I just feel that, as I say, from a comment perspective, I just feel that obviously if any of rooms that are on applications are bordering on a centimetre squared, which is literally the size of my fingernail, I just think it would be good practice that we do send out officers just to double check before we issue the licences. So that's the first comment. Second comment is, I think we can all unite here and say, on behalf of anybody that's abusing you, I do apologise. I think that we need to make it very clear that everybody, including us, officers, past officers, and employees of management companies and so on and so forth, are only merely trying to do a job the best they can. And any form of abuse from anybody watching this is wildly unacceptable under any circumstance. And I just think that we should all, you know, although we disagree sometimes, we should all unite that that is wildly unacceptable and should never be acceptable in this council. And we take a stand against that. And I do apologise, you've been a victim of that. And I hope that anybody listening takes note.
Yep, I'm sure we would all share that. David, in terms of measuring the rooms, 10.01.
Chair, I'm just wondering if that's crossing over into the issue of what licensing do against what planning does. So, yeah. If you grant the planning permission today, they only have planning permission to do that layout.
Okay, colleagues, one proposal on the table. Are there any other proposals? No. Can I see those in favour of granting planning permission, please show. Those against, please show. Those abstaining, please show. So that's 8 in favour, 0 against, 2 abstaining. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, moving on to 95 Queen's Road.
Thanks, Simon. Right, I need to get my notes back. So thank you, Chair. So this is an application at 95 Queen's Road for a change of use from the existing C3 dwelling house to a 7-person, 7-bed HMO. So this is a property here. You'll see quite a long outshot to the rear, quite a depth to the properties in this particular location, but a similar terrace house as per the adjoining properties. And this is view from the front, though again, typical of the surrounding neighbouring properties. So this will be a fresh HMO, so we're looking at your requirements in the SPD for mixed balance communities, applying the 50-metre radius there. So we have currently 4 HMOs indicated. This would make it 4 HMOs within the 50-metre radius, so the percentage would be 4.54, so well below the 10%. So this is the existing property. As you see, it's got a substantial rear wing extending out to the north into the garden. And the proposals are to erect a dormer window above as permitted development, and then a rear extension to the back. And you can also see right to the end the indicated cycle store there. So existing layout, very typical as what you would expect, with 3 bedrooms and a bathroom at the first floor and the living spaces at ground floor. As extended, we get to a 7-bed HMO, so that's 2 properties on the ground floor or en suite. The extended rear extension gives your communal living and dining space. First floor, we are at 3 beds, all en suite, and then in the loft, 2 more bedrooms provided, one with a separate bathroom and the other en suite with the roof lights on the first, facing to the front. As you've seen in the report, all rooms comply with your standards for both living spaces and bedrooms. Just finishing off, you can see the property in need of some significant investment and restoration as part of the scheme, but there's the main rooms that you can see at the property at the moment. There's a view of the rear garden and where the first floor rooms would be, and then finally just a view back into the back of the house where you can see the unusual canted bay on the side elevation there. So, Chair, this is, again, this is a straightforward one as a change of use from C3 to HMO. We've checked the regulations against your adopted standards and policies, and we're satisfied it complies, and we recommend it for approval to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Vertitudes, hello. I'm sorry to get that so badly wrong.
No, that's okay. So good morning again, members of the Planning Committee. My name is João Vertitudes, and I'm speaking as the agent for the proposed change of use at 95 Queen's Road from a Class C3 dwelling house to a sui generis 7-bed house in multiple occupation. Our application has been prepared carefully, considering local and national planning policies, ensuring the proposal complies with Portsmouth's established guidelines for HMOs, particularly policy PCS 20 of the Portsmouth Plan and the associated HMO supplementary planning document SPD. I would like to take this opportunity to outline the key aspects of the proposal and address concerns raised by local residents. Firstly, the property in question is suitable for conversion to an HMO as it meets the necessary space and amenity standards, ensuring a high level of living accommodation for future occupants. Each bedroom exceeds the minimum space standards requirements, and shared facilities such as kitchen and bathroom spaces have been designed to be practical, accessible, and in line with national HMO licensing standards. With regard to community balance and housing stock, we acknowledge concerns regarding the loss of family homes. However, the demand for varied housing options, including HMOs, remains significant in Portsmouth, particularly for young professionals, key workers, and students contributing to the local economy. The city's housing needs assessment indicates that a mix of housing types is necessary to meet the needs of its diverse population. Now, regarding the cumulative impact of HMOs in the area, our proposal has been assessed against the 10% threshold set out in the Portsmouth HMO SPD. The property falls within an area where this density policy has been carefully considered, ensuring that it does not lead to an overconcentration of HMOs beyond the acceptable limits. Transport and parking concerns have also been raised. The site is sustainable, with good access to public transport, cycling, and walking routes. The existing parking standards SPD has been used to assess the impact, and we have provided detail demonstrating that the development will not lead to significant parking stress. As with many HMOs, there is a lower level of car ownership among occupants, and measures will be in place to encourage sustainable transport use. The proposal meets the necessary regulations on environmental and infrastructure concerns, including waste management and sewage considerations. The development will contribute to the Solent Special Protection Area Mitigation Fund, ensuring that any environmental impact is appropriately offset in line with Portsmouth City Council's policy. As a principal designer on this application, I can also assure you that no macerated toilets will be used in line with some of the comments on the application. This application aligns with local and national planning policies, provides much needed housing, and will be a well-managed and high-quality addition to Portsmouth housing stock. We respectfully request that the committee approve this application in recognition of its compliance with policy and contribution to meeting housing needs in the city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Obrigado. Okay, colleagues, questions. Councillor Smythe.
I've only got one question, Chair. Paragraph 812 on page 41 says that the HMO use of this site has currently benefits from for a licence for 8 residents, which was granted in July 2024. Could I be reassured that the fact that the planning permission that we intend to give is specifically for only 7 people in 7 rooms, that won't bear any weight in the eventual occupancy of the dwelling?
David?
Yes, apologies, that's an error in the report, so we did correct that in the SMAT, so it hasn't been licensed yet.
So ignore that paragraph, it's wrong.
It's unusual that paragraph appears, and in fact it appears in the next application as well. Whether it's wrong or right, would if licensing did license for a greater number than the planning application, which would prevail?
Depends on the decision made on the application today, Chair, and any conditions that might be attached to the permission. If members wanted to ensure that no more than 7 occupied the property, they would need to impose a condition. However, I'm just going to check on the, I suspect some of the sizes of the rooms, if I can look at the report, would actually...
13 point something is the biggest room.
Yeah, so anything above 14 can have a dual occupancy.
But there aren't.
So this one wouldn't even, I mean, this is 13.24, 13.4, the largest room.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I'm willing to accept that's a mistake, but I just wanted to have it clarified.
Yep.
I think the planning application does say it's a 7-bedroom person house. I don't think we therefore need to put an extra condition on. Is that correct?
Yes, sorry, yes, yeah, I'm just double checking the room sizes. We don't appear to be above 14, and 14 is the size for dual occupancy from memory, Chair.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Atwell?
Just question around light, natural light to bedroom 7. Can you tell me about how much light is going to get to bedroom 7?
Yeah, it's the existing window in on the return.
So, yes, hopefully this helps in terms of the view down the light well in there. Due to the distance of the garden and the distance to the property to the next property to the north, but on the street behind, we're satisfied that there'd be adequate light and outlook for an occupier in that room. And you can see the amount of light that gets into that particular area from the photograph as well.
Okay, Councillor Atwell. Okay, Councillor Mason and then Councillor Madrick.
Just for confirmation, can the officer confirm that although room 1 is under a sloping roof, there is adequate space which is over 1.5 metres high?
Stop.
Yes, so if you look at bedroom 1, they've indicated that dotted line is the area of the slope of the roof where there's a lower head height, and yes, the space is still adequate beyond that area. So in response to some of the comments that obviously the committee have made, a number of the submissions are acknowledging where they're drawing their space standards from, not including corridors and lobbies and the like. So yes, yeah, we're satisfied in terms of bedroom 1, Chair.
Councillor Madrick?
Yeah, I've got quite a few, Chair. First of all, I might sound like a right idiot. On the first page of the slide, when you were saying about the current HMOs in the area, you got the stars. And I'm sure you guys know what the answer to this, but obviously I don't. What's the yellow dots mean? So you got 3 stars. What's the 2 yellow dots mean?
Commercial.
Commercial properties, Chair.
That answers my first question. Wonderful. I've noticed on 6.3 it states about that there's no actual planning condition for cycle storage. However, there is an indication in the planning documents that they're implying there's going to be something out the back. The report does recommend that we put a condition on for cycle storage. Obviously, under the SPD 2014, there should be 4 spaces for this HMO for cycles. So, as I say, the report does state that it would recommend that we put a condition on. So, but the question is obviously with the SDP saying that there should be 4 spaces, is the proposal out back enough for 4 bicycles?
Yeah, Chair, helpfully you can see due to the depth of the garden in the property, there will be comfortable room to erect a bike store of that size, and it's also shown on that side elevation that the building indicated on, it's on the next one, Simon. That's it, yeah. So, yes, I think we're satisfied that we'd be able to erect an adequately sized cycle store and not and still leave room in the garden.
Perfect. So I think we should put a condition on that to make sure it's in the conditions.
It already is.
Oh, it's
on page 46. It's there for 4 bikes.
Okay. 7.1 makes a accusation that there's HMOs in the area that are active without licensing. Do the planning enforcement team have any current enforcement action or anything going on with any potential illegal HMOs at the moment in that area?
Chair, I don't have the answer to that at this point in time. We can find that out for later. But as previously advised, if there are unlawful HMOs existing within the area, they don't jump the queue where we're dealing with a planning application, because in effect that would be to reward someone for operating a HMO without consent. We do investigate where these allegations are made, and the enforcement team do as well, and the officers do follow up on these where there's comments made about additional HMOs, so we're satisfied in the data so that we can be confident in the data that we give to you. But yes, as a fundamental point, if there's an unlawful HMO in the area, we would not count it, because in effect that's rewarding someone for carrying out that without planning permission.
I'm content with that answer, thank you. On the plans on the ground floor, obviously it says the communal area is big enough, which is great, but what's the width of the back end of that communal area? Because it looks really narrow, and although I know, of course it will meet space requirements, but is it really livable? So what's the width of that back end?
Might have to try and check that and come back to you. That'll need me to open up the plan and use the measuring tool.
Yeah, I just think, because obviously there still needs to be a quality of living. I understand that sometimes we meet space requirements, but there needs to be a decent quality of living within that, surely. And I think that it does look very narrow, so I just want some clarification that it's not, for example, under 2 meters or something, you know, because I think, you know, if it's not the width of a door, then it wouldn't be wide enough. I'll move on very slightly. As I say, the same thing as last time, Chair, is that obviously all the toilets meet the space requirements by either dead on or 1 centimetre squared. Once again, I would like officers in the licensing to check on that beforehand. And the last thing, while officers are looking at the width of the back end, is I'm obviously going to bring up parking. 8.1 obviously says that this will be breaching the SDP 2012 on parking. It's meant to have 2 spaces. I'm assuming there's a mitigation to allow for approval without allocated parking. But obviously our conditions do say that they should have 2 spaces. So what are we doing to mitigate that?
So our issue here with parking is we've tried this before with applications, and the planning inspector has said that they're not interested and they're happy to give planning permission with that. And we need to be realistic that they are the final arbiters.
So essentially there's case law that
says it's exactly the same decision that we've had in terms of sewerage and things like that. Just the planning inspector saying that's nothing for you to worry about. We will give planning permission even so.
It's a shame, isn't it? They don't look
Yeah,
after
no,
our own rules.
absolutely. The decision should rest locally, but unfortunately the law of the land says otherwise.
Become an MP, Gerald, and change the law.
Chair, I've got that answer. So the width is 2.3 metres. You'll see that they're indicative from the CAD drawings, but you can see there's room for seating and sofa within that rear area. And just to confirm the point about the parking, the standard for a 3-bed existing property would be 1.5 spaces in the local plan, and for a 7-bed HMO would be 2 spaces, so it's half a space. So it's the ability to provide half a space, I think, which is the difficulty in the argument.
Okay, Matthew.
Thank you, Chair.
So
yeah,
Councillor Cody, my apologies.
That's okay. Just looking at the drawings here, like Councillor Madry just said, 2.3 metres seems quite narrow. Would the bicycles have to come through that area to get to the front door?
Yes, but that would apply with the existing property.
Can I ask, in terms of bedroom 2, there's a bit at the outside of bedroom 2, and it looked as if there were some glass barriers around. Does that have outside space at second floor standard, the second floor level? there we are, on that plan, yeah, exactly there. With the new build dormer coming back out, it looks as if there's a balcony.
Yes, so what that is, Chair, is, if, yeah, Simon's indicating helpfully, Mr Taylor's indicating helpfully there, the dormer extension extends above the ridge of the existing outshot. Yeah. It's still permitted development, which is a bit of a quirk of the PD, is that you can exceed the ridge there as long as you don't exceed the ridge on the main roof. So, yes, it's a bit of an optical illusion. A balcony would need planning permission, so it's one of the reasons why you won't typically see it.
No, that's very good. I'm grateful for that, because that could have caused major problems for the neighbours to having a second floor balcony. Okay, so I'm glad. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Shah.
Thank you, Chair. Just a query, not a question. These 10 square meter for single occupancy and 14 square meter for double occupancy, I think these are guidelines.
David, I think they're in our space standards.
Yes, they're in both SPDs. Yes, both the licensing one and the planning one. Yeah.
And you get the different interpretations that sometimes we're told we're not to plan by numbers, but other times people have said, well, it's within the guidelines, you can't turn it down. So people interpret it to their advantage, whichever way we do it. Councillor Vallely.
Sorry, just to go back to the last one where we were looking at the, below what we were talking about, the balcony, what's that little diagonal?
I suspect that is the lean-to of the adjacent property at the rear, which is got a pitch and not flat. That would be my educated guess.
Okay, any more questions, ladies and gentlemen? Councillor Madrick.
Yeah, just to follow up. I do have quite an issue with the back end, actually, of the property, saying it's 2.3. I just did some Google research, and the average size of a kitchen cabinet either side is 60 to 70 centimetres. Average width of handlebars on a bike is up to 50 centimetres. With the design there at the back, you've got the sofa which has an average depth of up to 102 centimetres. The TV, obviously, up to 12 centimetres. I just think that the space requirements there to bring a bike through is really, really tight, especially if you've then got legs in front of it of people sitting down. So, Chair, I just don't feel it's appropriate. If you've got one person standing in that kitchen, unless that person is stickman, they're not going to be able to get past with the bike very comfortably. And if you can see in there, there's not much manoeuvrability when you've got a table, unless you've got 7 residents in there. If you assume one person sitting down, one's in the kitchen, you're not getting a bike through. Based on, say, the average sizes, it'd be a little bit different if it was. I don't know how you plan that differently, but what I'm saying is, Chair, is that it's not a comfortable living area, and it's not an appropriate living area, because the space in between simply won't be able to get the bikes through to the back end with any human being in that room at the same time.
David.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Having been through a number of our appeal decisions on HMOs, it's clear that that as a concern has been argued before. It's not been supported by inspectors. Their view is it's just a temporal conflict which might arise occasionally, and the people living in that property could deal with it by just waiting until they're not using the kitchen, and also it also applies. But Chair, it also applies to any occupier of the property at the moment. They would have to wheel a bicycle through the property into the garden. So we have lost costs arguing that before.
And the existing property is the same width as the proposed extension. Okay, any other questions, colleagues? No. Okay, comments? Happy to propose the officer recommendation on this. Councillor Candlish.
You'd moved straight to the vote. I was briefly going to comment.
Oh, sorry. Carry on.
I think this discussion highlights why, frankly, many of these houses, although they put a cycle storage unit out the back by condition, that's a £400 investment to enable the condition to be met. It is never actually used. And it's also why a lot of these people actually then choose to use the currently illegal electric scooters, because those are much more feasible to go through, but that raises other issues. Anyway, since you've proposed it, Chair, I can find no grounds on which to refuse this one within the current letter of the law, and therefore, without much enthusiasm, I would second your proposal.
Are there any other proposals? No? Okay. Any other comments, colleagues? No? Okay. Let's move to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. Those abstaining can't be because there aren't any other people left. Okay, so that's 8-2 in favour. Planning permission is granted. Thank you. And our last application is 129 New Road. David. Oh, Simon, sorry, beg your pardon.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application at 129 New Road, Fratton, for the change of use from a Class C3 dwelling house to a 7-bedroom, 7-person house in multiple occupation. The applications come to committee because of the number of neighbour objections. The applications, so New Road is one of those long roads running east to west across the centre of the island. We're about 360 metres east of Fratton Road, Kingston Road. So just a 5-minute walk to Fratton Road, Kingston Road with all the local facilities, public transport, etc. And then it's slightly further to the east to Kingston Cemetery and Copner Road. It's a mid-terrace property. There it is on street view. You can see zigzags on the pavement on outside the property. So there's a pelican crossing, a zebra crossing just out of sight on the right-hand side, the eastern side. You can see two doors to the left, a little Chinese takeaway. There's an Indian takeaway further along to the east, fish and chips and a co-op. So also some local food outlets and food shops. Looking straight away at the HMO data for the Mixed and Balanced Community Policy PCS 20. We've just tidied up the plan presentation from what's in the report, excluding the properties that are shown in the report beyond the 50-metre radius. So we've just tidied it up to make it a bit more readable for you, but it's the same information within the 50 metres. You can see 4 properties that are already HMOs with the purple stars. One next door to the eastern side, a couple more along to the east, and one to the southeast opposite. And in the SMAT as well, we've also noted that we've recounted the number of residential properties in the area, and we believe it is 89, not the 90 stated. So if this application is approved, the numbers would be 5 out of 89, which is 5.61%, so just a slight adjustment from the committee report, still well below the 10% in the guidance, which indicates a mixed and balanced community would be maintained even with the approval of this application. The existing property is a fairly plain mid-terraced property with a rear wing. The application shows a permitted development roof extension to the rear and a prior approval single-storey rear extension to the ground floor. That the history to that is set out in the report. Another minor correction, the rear window on the ground floor proposed bedroom here has been changed just overnight, confirming that they have got French doors. You'll see in a photograph in a minute that already exist. They showed a normal window, but it's actually full-height glazed French doors, so we've just corrected that and mentioned that in the SMAT. So the existing property was 4 rooms downstairs, traditional, fairly standard approach originally. Upstairs, 3 bedrooms and a bathroom as well. I think there's just a wall missing from that mid-room there. That was the bathroom, or is the bathroom, I should say. On that point as well, thank you, Councillor Smythe. There was a typo in this report as well. The property is not licensed. The proposed floor plans, so this is one of the properties that, apart from the external extensions, the roof and to the ground floor rear, there's an extensive remodelling internally of the property to completely rearrange the rooms. We've got ensuite rooms downstairs, a utility room under the stairs, the communal living room there, which is 23.93, so above the 22.5 required, and as I say, the utility room extra under the stairs there. Upstairs, a couple of off-suites we're becoming familiar with now, where bedroom 5 has its own little shower room, but it's disconnected from the bedroom, but it's clearly theirs because all the other rooms have en-suites or another off-suite up in the roof. The hatching here, the applicants just decided to show us the licensing requirement. One of their criteria, they have about 2.3 metres height and 75% of the area, which they show us is proposed and is achieved, I should say. And the more regular 1.5 metre height we have here is measured to that line there. Bedroom 1 is the large room, 21.74 square metres, more than double the 10 square metres size. The other bedrooms are closer to the 10 square metres, just nipping above, up to nearly 12 square metres. So in terms of the accommodation provided, it meets all your guidelines, and on any other assessment, I think, of light and arrangements, officers are happy with it. Just for completeness, the sections through showing the remodelling, and then just in the top left there, the bike store to the rear in the existing shed. This is the property that's still in C3 use. First floor bedroom looking onto the street, the middle room looking down the light well, the rear bedroom, first floor, back garden with some terracing and whatnot. Quite a good sized back garden, as you can see there. That's the window I referred to earlier that is already a French fully glazed doors, so that will become the bedroom on the ground floor, retaining that level of light and amenity. There's the existing kitchen, which will be extensively remodelled. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Some colleagues' questions. Councillor Atwell.
Bedroom 3. I'm assuming it's a typo, it should be 10 square metres, not 14. I can never quite get my head around how big corridors are. And in a previous application we had read that the bit I couldn't read because it was too small, but told us how big the room was without the corridor. That's actually quite useful, I think, if it's possible to have that going forward, because it will save us keep asking questions like this. So how big is the usable space in bedroom 3?
Excluding the corridor.
Well, okay, well, the case officer will have to measure that back in the ranch and ping us a message in a moment. So bedroom 3 is 11.06 presently. By eye, if you wanted to exclude part of that corridor area, you'd be getting around about the 10 square metres, but the officer will measure it for us and I'll let you know shortly.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Medway.
Similar thing as last time on bedroom 6. Obviously, it meets the space requirements again, dead on. But I noticed the room isn't just a simple square. So how have they measured that? Because when we're talking about 1 centimetre, it looks like they've if you look at the top of bedroom 6, it looks like they've come out, down, and around. So how have they calculated the square meterage of the room? Because I'm assuming it's not just, say, for example, 4 by 2.5 or whatever, because it's not. Yeah, you'll see it's obviously not a perfectly straight line. So what's the calculations on the width and depth that they've used to calculate that size?
Save me, Councillor, but bedroom 6 looks like an oblong, so that there wouldn't be any unusable space in an oblong.
No, sorry. Let me be clear. The dividing wall between the ensuite and bedroom 6 is what I'm querying. So when you measure the size of a room, all the rest of the rooms are very evenly shaped and the walls are very straight. So it's easy to say 2.5 by 4 equals whatever. Yeah, perfect. You've just put a green dot on it. So what I'm on about is that little corner there. Have they accounted for that, or have they just gone straight across in their measurements?
No. Well, first of all, the measurements on the screen are the applicant's measurements. The case officer provides their measurements in the report, which will vary very slightly sometimes. So that says, I think, 10,000. That's the applicant's measurement. The officer has measured bedroom 6 as the same. Yes, you'd expect the applicant and certainly the officer to measure including that slight little nip in there, Councillor, that you're referring to. So yes, the whole area has been measured as you see it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then going back to bedroom 3, which was Councillor Atwell's question, excluding the whole corridor area, which I'm resorting to the laser display thing here, is 9.75. So, I mean, yeah, there you are. Make your own mind up.
Councillor Smythe.
I take it that the comments that were made about the licensing, the alleged licensing approval for 8 people in this house, the comments will be the same. In other words, the planning application and the planning approval would overcome that recommendation, apparent recommendation by licensing. So, but I do think we need to possibly put a condition on this one, because we've got bedroom 1, which is absolutely enormous. Yeah. It's and the temptation to put 2 people in there, I think, might be very great. So I would like to propose that we do put a condition on, just emphasising that we want the house to be occupied only by 7 people in 7 rooms.
Okay.
So that's a kind of question and a comment.
Yes.
Can we do that?
Probably. Do you have somebody who would support your question stroke comment? Thank you, Mary. Okay, I think have we finished questions, ladies and gentlemen? Should we move on to comments? So we have a proposal on the table, which I think is to grant planning permission. Yeah, hold on for a second. Yeah, it was. It was a question and a comment, so it becomes a proposal. So the proposal, I think, from Councillor... Hold on a second. So I think where we are is Councillor Smythe has made a proposal which has been seconded by Councillor Valley to give permission, but with a condition that it is limited to 7 people. Is that correct, Councillor Smythe?
Well, yes. I mean, that's not coming on to that, but what I actually said was, would it be given that it's, would it be possible?
Okay. Juliet. David. Simon.
Thank
George,
you.
Henry
The development description refers to 7 people. A, B, the special protection areas mitigation that's already been paid for in the legal agreement will be for 7 people. So, strictly speaking, for both those reasons, were they to wish to occupy the bedroom in the loft, which is big enough, you're right, for double occupancy, otherwise they'd need to pay for the extra, and it's not in compliance with the development description. However, should you wish to apply a condition, you may.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Councillor Atwell.
Well, I'm interested to know what Juliet might think about whether we've had a proposal, because I think it might be significant in the sense of the order of proposals.
I don't think Councillor Smythe had actually made a proposal. She put forward a question.
Okay. Shall we come back to Councillor Smythe? Councillor Smythe.
Well, we haven't got to that bit.
But Councillor Smythe did once Gerald, the chair, had gone back about her comments. Councillor Smythe then did make a proposal, but I don't think Councillor Vallely has had the opportunity to second it, because it was seconded before it was made.
And I think some greater clarity between the question section and the comment section would
Yes.
be welcomed by the committee.
I agree. It's best to see if we can keep them separate. Okay, so end of questions, beginning of comments. Councillor Smythe. No, Councillor has indicated he wants. Councillor Smythe, would you like to make... No, there are no more questions. We're on comments. Would Councillor Smythe like to make a proposal?
I'd like to propose we accept this.
With your microphone, please.
I'd like to propose we accept this with the officer's recommendations and the standard conditions, but because of this enormous bedroom bedroom 1, that we do put a sort of belt and braces condition that the occupancy is limited to 7.
Thank you. Is that proposal seconded? Thank you, Councillor Valley. Councillor Atwell.
I have an alternative proposal, that is to refuse planning permission because bedroom 3 does not meet our space standards.
Thank you. And is that seconded?
It is seconded for sure.
Thank you.
Councillor James.
Okay, we have 2 proposals.
Are we not doing comments?
Yeah, if you want to witter. I'm sorry, if you want to say anything.
I do want to say something, yeah. I just want to reflect Councillor Atwell's suggestion, but bedroom 3 does not meet the space requirements, as he says, because of the hallway.
Yeah.
A clever planning application would have probably put the ensuite parallel to the ensuite that's below bedroom 4, and then it would have met space requirements more than likely, because the opening would have been straight into the room. But because it's not, the current planning proposal before us does not meet the space requirements, because it's the usable space is 9.75, I think.
Okay.
Chair, could I just come in? Where the rooms are smaller size, oh no, they're not 6 metres, are they? 6, they're above, sorry, ignore me.
Okay, colleagues, we have two proposals. The first was proposed by Councillor Smythe, and therefore... Sorry? So Councillor Smythe, are you indicating you might wish to withdraw your proposal? Microphone, please.
Just to make this even more difficult, I'd like to ask a further question about bedroom 3. What is the resulting size of bedroom 3 when you take that corridor?
9.75.
9.75.
Which is below the 10 metre.
We don't generally take out the corridors in
Yes, we do.
bedrooms. No, we don't.
We do, as a committee.
We do on some occasions,
Yes.
depending on the layout.
And with the little bit of corridor, it's 11 metres squared.
Yeah.
Chairman.
No, I'll stay with what I've...
Okay, Mary, are you staying or twisting? Hold on, Councillor Atwell.
I don't want a second after all, Chair.
Okay, so we have one proposal that is proposed and seconded. Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to point out, so without that corridor, very short corridor into bedroom 3, it's been measured as 9.75. Just the space for opening the door, which you can say is unusable space, is going to be more than the 0.25 you're short of. So I would just say you can bear that.
We don't do planning by numbers.
Chair, just to emphasise the point, a very minor failure against the standard does not automatically equate to a strong reason to refuse the entire scheme. So members need to approach with caution. A small technical failure against the guidance is not necessarily give us strong grounds for refusing the application.
So David, my problem with that is that if it's at 10.01, however much we might dislike something, we have to give approval. And that seems to me that's we've got to have a standard to which we stick. So therefore, if it's about saying we stick to the standards, yes or no, this is clearly a no. And if it was 0.1 centimetre, 1 centimetre above, it would have been okay, but it's not, and therefore that is a very clear failure. Councillor Atwell and Councillor Shah.
Well, just, we are being tasked to consider the quality of life of people living in these buildings, and I've come to a conclusion, given all the evidence in front of me, that bedroom makes the whole thing unviable.
Yep. Councillor Shaw?
Thank you. Actually, I wanted to confirm, is this just a guidance or this is a strict rule we cannot go below 10 metres square?
So,
square metre.
From my experience on this committee, we have a space standard that the council has adopted for what we expect rooms to be. There is sometimes a suggestion that we should be flexible when it's just slightly too small, but never flexible if it's slightly too big. David?
Just to confirm the point, so the SPD is guidance, so it supports the policy in the local plan. So the local plan has greater weight, the guidance has lesser weight if we're talking about what trumps which. But
I don't think we should use that word here.
Okay. But I do need to just give you my professional opinion, we do have appeal decisions where we've had rooms at 9.9, 9.6, and the inspector has said it's a minor failure against the target, and they didn't feel it was harmful. So I have to give you that professional advice, Chair.
Okay.
Chair, could I come back in? You know, when I said earlier that I wanted to give you some advice and didn't, I've changed my mind. Single rooms we can have in a property at 6.51 metres squared. We require a larger communal area in those circumstances. So what I think you should probably gearing towards is the communal area rather than the size of the room of the bedroom. Does that assist you?
That's very sensible advice. So because not all rooms are over 10 square metres of usable space, therefore the communal space should be larger, because it doesn't benefit from the reduction that is allowed when we have bigger bedrooms where people live. So Julia, I think that's very helpful advice. Any other, okay, sorry, Councillor Smythe.
I'm sorry I sort of wobbled over bedroom 3, but actually it's a very small corridor, and it does mean that that room doesn't have a door opening into it. It's actually quite usable space, and we're talking about a very small amount by which it's too small. And I think an inspector would look at it and say, well, they would measure it as 11.8. Sorry, what is it? 11.06 metres squared, which is pretty good. So I do stick by my recommendation here. I think I'd like to follow the planning officer's recommendation in this instance.
Do you have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Okay, so as the first proposal that was proposed and seconded came from Councillor Atwell, we go to that first, because the seconding of Councillor Smythe has only just come in, which is later. So, can I see those people in favour of refusal on the basis
Chair,
that...
before we go to the vote, does Councillor Atwell want to take into account the advice I gave?
Advice.
So
And so I was about...
sticking with the size of the bedroom, is that?
No, it was... yes, we can... Yeah, so we've taken your advice, Juliet, and it's about the lack of space in the communal area because not all the bedrooms are above the 10 square metres of usable space. Is that correct, Councillor Atwell? Okay, David, Simon, is that... You may not be happy with it, but are you cognizant of it?
We've got that as your reasons, Chair.
Okay, can I see those in favour of the proposal from Councillor Atwell to refuse planning permission, please show. 1, 2, 3. Councillor Cavendish, have you now made your mind up? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 for refusal. Those in favour of granting, please show. And there can be no proposal. So that's refused 8. Refused by 8 votes to 2 with no abstentions. Okay, thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. That's the end of the meeting.